Hey everybody! I get a lot of questions and comments around dry curing versus wet curing. So today I'm going to do a little test and see what, if any, are the differences in the results. I'm making one of my all-time favorite cured and smoked recipes. It's back bacon both ways, so let's get started. This isn't going to be an extremely scientific experiment. I'm just going to do the best I can with what I've got. And I'm going to start by cutting 2 sections of pork loin in a roughly the same shape and exactly the same weight. Then I'll cure them and I'll smoke them and I'll re-weigh to compare water loss, and I'll finish up with the all-important taste test. To keep the measurements nice and simple, I think I'm going to try and go for 1.5 kilos on each of these. I should have to take a little bit more than a pound off of this one. Let's give that a try. That is really close, so let's see if I can get this one to be just about the same. Now let's see how we did. One looks good. There. Now, I'll tie both of these up, make some nice tight packages. I'll help them cure and cook evenly. Just a bit of string, every 1.5 inches or so will do the job. Look pretty good, pretty even there, and they are the same weight. So now let's look at the cure for these luscious loins, and I'm doing the most basic salt and sugar cure on these, and I'll use the same percentages on both. The only difference will be that one will be submerged in a curing solution, and for the other one I'll rely on the water extracted from it by the salt to make its own solution in the bag. It makes its own gravy, so to speak. Let's put together the dry cured one first. And for my back bacon, I like to go with equal parts of salt and sugar, and I like to go at a rate of 3% on those. So for my 1,500 grams of meat, I'm gonna need 45 grams of salt and 45 grams of sugar. And for my American friends out there, I'll do my best to get as close as I can using tablespoons and teaspoons. Well, that's 1 tablespoon is just over 15 grams. So that is gonna be just about 3 tablespoons of plain non-iodized salt. It's just a little bit less. If you go with 3 tablespoons, you're gonna be right in the ballpark. Well, there are 45 grams of salt. Now I need 45 grams of white sugar as well. There's 1 tablespoon. 2. That is going to be about 3.5 tablespoons for 45 grams of white sugar. And now the curing salt goes in at a rate of 0.25%. So for my 1,500 grams of meat plus my 45 grams of salt and my 45 grams of sugar, I need 4 grams of pink cure number 1. And you do want to be pretty precise when you're measuring your cure. Now I get my cure down into here. And I want to blend this all together pretty well. Now, in goes my pork loin, and I will roll this all around. Make sure I get both ends. Get this coated as well as I can. Now, I'll get this down into a bag and make sure I get every last bit of this curing mixture down into there as well. Now, let's work out as much of the air out of this bag as I can. And this one is going to go into the refrigerator just like this. You're going to notice pretty quickly that salt is going to start pulling water out of the meat, and then it's going to make its own curing solution in the bag. So every day or so I'll take it out and I'll give it a nice good massage. Really work that sack. Make sure your cure is nice and even. Now let's put together our wet cure. For this one, my percentages are gonna be the same, but I'm gonna be working with more weight because I'm gonna start with a liter of water. So for this one, to calculate the salt, I need 3% of the combined weight of the meat and the water. So that's going to be 2,500 grams multiplied by 3% gives me 75 grams of salt and 75 grams of sugar, which should be close to 5 tablespoons. So that was just under 5 tablespoons of that plain salt. Now for 75 grams of sugar. That was also just about 5 tablespoons. Slightly over, and the salt was slightly under. But 5 tablespoons of each should get you right there. Now let's figure the curing salt. To calculate the cure for this one, I need to use the weight of the meat, the water, the salt, and the sugar combined, and then I'll multiply that by 0.25%, and that gives me 6.6 grams of cure. Now I'll whisk this until everything in there is completely dissolved. Now, we'll just pour the solution into the bag. Again, work as much air out of that bag as you can. And now both of these go out into the refrigerator to let that cure work its magic. And for a piece of meat this size and shape, that's gonna take 1 week.
Much later.
There we go. It's been a week, so my cure time is finished, and I can feel now that I've got some good stiff meat in my hands. So the next thing I want to do is get these things air dried and ready for the smoker. Now, normally with these wet cured ones, I don't worry too much about rinsing that off. I'll just pat them dry with paper towels, but you see the small amount of liquid that's collected in the dry brined one, and that's gonna probably be some pretty strong stuff. So I'll rinse this one off, and just to be fair, I'll go ahead and rinse this one too. And then I'll pat these as dry as I can with paper towels. And then I need to let these air dry for a while before they go into the smoker. And during that air drying, some of the sugar on here will get nice and tacky, and that's gonna help the smoke adhere to this, and it's gonna help it develop a nice pellicle, and that is that shiny amber colored rind that is so beautiful on nicely smoked meats. And for air drying these, I could either put them into the refrigerator on a rack and leave them in there for a day or two, or of course, I can pop these out here into the sausage closet with that fan going. Leave them out here at room temperature. It's actually pretty cool in here today. And I'll leave those in there for a couple of hours. They'll dry much more quickly than they do in the refrigerator. And I put this little string on here to let me know that this is the dry cured and that is the wet cured. And I have actually already weighed them both, so I've got some ideas of what's going to happen here, but no spoilers for now. There we go. Now these are starting to get real sticky, and this is a great time to coat these with some crushed black pepper or red pepper or whatever you like. But I'm just going original recipe today, so I'm going to get these out and into the smoker. Now we're out and into the smoker. You can use whatever wood you like here. I'm using apple wood today, and this is going to be a real low temperature smoke. I want to keep this down around 130 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit so I get a lot of smoke penetration and develop that really nice rind. Now this is an old, inexpensive analog smoker. I've just got one gas burner down below, and I can hit the low temperatures by leaving the door cracked. I know a lot of smokers these days won't go down below 150, and they also self-regulate, so if you crack the door, they're always trying to up that heat to hit 150. So I'm not sure what you can do in that situation. You're just going to have to play around with your equipment, and maybe you can figure something out. So I'm going to leave these down here at that low temp anywhere from 4 to 6 hours until they look nice and amber colored, and then I'll bump up the heat and finish them off. There we go, that looks like about enough smoke to me. They've been out here for just about 5 hours. Now, if you're going to want to finish these out here in the smoker or in the oven, you're going to want to finish them up at a higher temp to preserve a lot of the moisture that's still in them. So turn your smoker up or pop them in an oven in probably about 200 to 225 Fahrenheit until you get an internal temperature of right around 145 degrees Fahrenheit. But if you want to finish these up really precisely, I do recommend bagging them up and finishing them in a water bath. I've got my water bath set to 145. And now I'm just going to drop these down in here and leave the top of this open just a little bit. Push that down into the water. It'll force all the air up and out of that bag. That's gonna help to keep your meat submerged. All right, I'll just clip this to the side. And these are gonna take a few hours in here, but the nice thing about the circulator is I don't have to worry about overcooking these, and I can go do my yard work and whatever else without having to come and check on the smoker every 30 minutes or so. This is a really valuable tool when you're doing this sort of thing, and the prices just keep dropping on these. So I'm just gonna let these go. They're probably gonna take 3 or 4 hours to come up to temp in the center. And again, I'm shooting for 145 internal. I used to do these up to about 150, 155, and they were just a little drier than I wanted. Still delicious though, and if you like that more firm texture, go ahead and take them up that far. But I want these to be pretty juicy. All right, it's been a few hours, so it's time to check these out. Want to get a reading with a good handheld. Oh yeah, we are right there. Perfect. And with the circulator, you can leave these in here for hours after they're finished, and they'll just hold that temperature. They'll continue to get more and more tender, and at some point, the slices will get kind of crumbly when you cut them, so you don't want to just leave them in here forever, but there is a wide window of when you can pull these things out of here. So mine have just now hit temperature, so I'm going to go ahead and take them out now. And also, since I've got my circulator set to the temperature that I want, there's not going to be any carryover cooking. If you're finishing these in the smoker or in the oven at that higher temperature, you're going to want to get these into some kind of a bag and then down into an ice bath or just some really cold water, and that way you're going to get them cooling down and stop any of the carryover cooking that could dry them out a little bit. So I'll get them out of here and pop them into the fridge, and once they're cooled all the way down, then we'll try them out. All right, now those are a couple of beautiful loins. Now let me cut the string off of these, and then we'll weigh them and see what that tells us. Let's get started with the wet cured loin. And that is coming in at 1,369 grams for a difference of 126 grams from where we started. And that is going to be an 8.4% water loss. Now our dry cured loin. This one's coming in at 1,316 grams. And that is a difference of 178 grams or an 11.9% water loss. So logic would tell you that this one is going to be a little more dry than this one. Of course, what really matters is the taste. Alright, it's finally time to see how we did and do a taste test on these. These are a couple of beautiful back bacons. You can see the fatty cap didn't take on a ton of color, but the meaty portions, oh yeah, that is a beautiful thing. But of course, what really matters is the taste. Let's start with our wet cured back bacon. Very supple. I can actually see some juices in there. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick that up, But you can see the juice on the surface. Oh yeah. Check out that bite. Ooh, haha. It's really, really flavorful and still very moist. Absolutely delicious. Now our dry cured back bacon. This one I can also see some juices on, but I can tell you just from cutting it that this one was a little stiffer to get through. Let's give that a shot. Check out that bite. Oh, that is absolutely wonderful as well. It is not quite as supple and moist as you'd figure, but the flavor is a little bit more concentrated. It's a little saltier, a little sweeter. Boy, I don't think there's a winner between the two. Oh, so good. So both of these methods are going to work out perfectly. The wet cured one here, I would say if you're planning on doing something where you're going to reheat that, or you're going to slice it and it's going to sit for a little while and dry out a little more, it's a great way to go. This is going to be perfect in sandwiches, or to cut a nice slab off of there and give it a quick pan fry for breakfast. Whereas this one, ooh, oh my. For me, this one's going on a pizza for sure. And also if you want to just slice some of this and add it to your charcuterie plate, I think this one might be a little better for that purpose. But either way, you've got a winner. Ooh. You can see on these that on both methods, the cure got all the way through there. You see that nice pink color that runs all the way through the center? That means we got a good cure on that. And so this is going to be good for a month or longer in the refrigerator. And if you freeze this up, it's going to be good pretty much until it freezer burns. So both of these methods worked out perfectly. It may just be up to your personal preference what you like to do, or maybe your refrigerator space. This one did take up a bit more space in the refrigerator. But I do recommend you try out both methods to see which one you like better. Or maybe you're like me and they're both equally great and maybe suited for different applications. Or whether you choose to do one or whether you choose to do both, I really hope you try this, and I know you're gonna love it. Thanks for watching. Nice.